This weekend is Women's FA Cup weekend and we're here to preview all the action from the quarter-finals. We've got the excitement of Championship Sunderland visiting the holders Man United. Man City face a tough test in Aston Villa. And Chelsea and Arsenal are also in action. We discuss how we expect the games to pan out, who the favourites are to win the competition, and which managers need a cup win to keep their job. This is our Women's FA Cup quarter-finals preview. Alright, let's get into it. It's the Women's FA Cup quarter-finals this weekend and we're here to preview all 4 games from this quarter-final weekend. We'll start then with the Saturday game, Manchester United versus Sunderland. 5:15 kickoff. Should be an interesting one, Harry. We've got a clash here between the second place team, the WSL, against the 6th place team in the Women's Championship. They're the only Women's Championship side left in the competition. It's a big opportunity for Sunderland, but you have to feel United are favourites.
Yeah, as you say, these two sides met in January 2023 in the FA Cup, and that was a slim 2-1 victory to Man United. But a lot has happened in those last 2 years, and I'd be very surprised if it was going to be that same scoreline. As you say, for United, it's another kind of draw. They've had quite a nice run of it so far in their FA Cup title defence. They had Wolves last time in the most recent round and put 6 past them, I believe. But that was a really good moment for Wolves. But at the end of the day, for United, that was a very, very comfortable game. So, as you say, they're the only Championship side left, Sunderland. So for United to draw them, that's pretty fortunate. And I think they'll be expecting another comfortable win to get themselves through to the semi-finals. But this is the FA Cup. We speak about the magic of this cup, the upsets that can happen. Sunderland, they're here on merit. Again, they have had a decent run to get there, knocking out Portsmouth, who currently finds themselves bottom of the Championship. So Sunderland, they've played very, very well. But for United, they'll be looking to get themselves into the semi-finals with a pretty big win here.
Yeah, I think Sunderland are a better side than the Women's Championship table represents, but it is a really competitive championship this year. So it makes sense why they are perhaps slightly lower than we'd expect to see them. As for United, I think it's easy to forget just how good a season they've had because of obviously the gap now with Chelsea. They have closed it recently. But I think it's easy to forget. But they've only lost 2 matches in all competitions this season. That's the loss to Chelsea and the loss to Man City, knocking them out of the Subway League Cup. So they've not had a bad season at all. In fact, they've had an incredible season. And I think that the FA Cup's got to be the competition that they're targeting now, with no European football and the WSL feeling unrealistic, I think, to say the least, at this point. I think the focus for United has to be on this FA Cup. So it's a really important game.
Yeah, as you say, it's their best shot at winning a trophy. And it would be very, very impressive if they were to go and win the biggest cup competition in the women's game back to back. That in English football, that would be really, really strong for United. So that's got to be the aim. They'll look at it. As you say, Sunderland are a good side. Eleanor Dale is still the top goal scorer in the FA Cup. So if she can find those...
If she notches in another one, then she might win it.
They may cause some issues, but they're going to rely, Sunderland, on a really strong defensive performance and then just hope they can nick something. Can a player like Dale or Jones go and get a goal and try and give them something to defend? But they are going to be up against it away from home as well, which is even if they were at home, that might give them something to hold on to.
But I think it's nice for the players, Sunderland players, to have that experience going to the Leigh Sports Village, or the Leigh Sports Village, I found out it's pronounced recently. I think it will be a really good occasion for them and for the fans as well to get to travel to see the Manchester United women's side. Ultimately, though, it's a game where I expect Sunderland will play very defensively, try and be as narrow and as compact as possible. It's a game that United will have a lot of the ball for. In terms of some predictions then, I think we're unanimous in Manchester United victory. What are we expecting for the scoreline?
I don't think it will be embarrassingly big. So United scored 6 against Wolves. I don't think it'll be that many. I'd probably, and to be fair, that game was 1-2-0 until United scored loads in the last 20-30 minutes. So I'd expect to see something like a 3-4-0 here. I think United will probably rest a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think that's a result both sides will take. Sunderland, their achievement is getting to the last 8 of the FA Cup. For Man United, they'll be expecting business as usual, really.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what team they play in this game, United, because you mentioned they're resting. But to be fair, they probably shouldn't. It's not like they've got a packed schedule at the moment, and their focus has to be on the FA Cup, because that's the competition they've got the most realistic chance of winning. So I think in that regard, it's really important that United are focused in this game, and I think that message will be made clear before kick-off. I think it will be imperative that United that they win this game. In terms of prediction, I'll probably say a slightly more modest 2 or 3-0 win. I think United will be the dominant side here. But I don't think Sunderland will fold too easily. It'll be interesting to see. I think it could be one of those games, though, that United are 1 or 2-0 up for the first 60 minutes, and it could get messy at the last half an hour. But I think Sunderland will give a good account of themselves, and I'm hoping we can see that we've seen in other clashes this season that the gap has bridged a little bit between the first and second division in the women's game, and I think we'll see that again here, that Sunderland are a bit closer to Manchester United than perhaps we would expect. And let's move on then to the Sunday fixtures, because that's the sole Saturday fixture. Sunday at 12:30, Manchester City versus Aston Villa. We'll be covering this game live, so join us on this channel from 12:15 for that coverage. This again, though, a really important one for Manchester City. City now aren't going to win the league, and there's a very good chance they're not going to get any European football. But then equally, it's easy to forget that City could still claim three trophies if they were to win the League Cup final, win the FA Cup, and somehow win the Champions League. Now, the Champions League feels like a pipe dream, but it's not unrealistic for City to expect to win 2 cups this year.
Yeah, and I think it's going, as you say, it doesn't seem like it. The way they've played, the season they've had, the struggles that they've come under this campaign, but as you say, they could end this season really, really well. A couple of weeks' time, they've got they've got the League Cup final. This game is absolutely paramount for them to win. But for me, this is the most interesting tie of the quarter. Well, the most interesting quarter final. This is going to be very, very interesting. City come into it after a really poor draw away at West Ham, which came off the back of a really poor performance against Tottenham, that they still got the win. It's 2 poor performances back to back for City, and one thing we know about this Aston Villa side is that they play very, very well up against better opposition. And again, people will look at Villa's results and expect a routine win for Man City. That's not the case. Villa's season, the results don't show how well they've played.
Yeah.
They were 2 minutes away from getting a point off Chelsea. They were beaten by Leicester, but again, for me, they probably could have won that game. And that seems mental to say because they lost 3-0. Villa have been putting in, again, they outplayed Everton, and if it wasn't for Courtney Brosnan, they'd have got something from that match. So for Aston Villa, they will fancy themselves, and if City have the same defensive troubles they've had in this season, Aston Villa will punish, because they've got some really good attackers and could definitely punish City in that area. And it's one of those games where in knockout football, if you go 1-2-0 down, then suddenly it's going to be very, very difficult to get it back, because if Villa take the lead here, they will not want to give that up. So I think for me, this could be probably the closest game out of the 4.
Yeah, I was going to say, because obviously we've mentioned that City could win some trophies this year, but equally, this game feels like the one that has the most chance of an upset. I think that Villa are a side who can go and take the game to Manchester City. They're a side who have a lot of quality, and on their day are a very strong side. And I don't think that Man City have been incredibly good recently. As you mentioned, a draw against West Ham in the midweek. They've also had to play in the midweek, which is another factor. Aston Villa should be fully rested from last weekend. So I think this tie has the most chance of an upset. I think Villa are a side who could cause issues. As you say, Arroyo has set up really well against those top sides. I think that we'll see another good defensive performance from Aston Villa. The question just arises on can they finish the job?
Yeah.
Because they didn't against Chelsea and they didn't against City. And for all their good performance, or in terms of underlying numbers and chance creation against Leicester, they lost 3-0. Yeah. So I think, yes, we can look at their performance, we can look at the underlying numbers, we can say that everything points positively for Aston Villa, but ultimately football's a results business, and they have lost every league game under Natalia Arroyo.
Yeah.
Which will be a worry. This, though, is a chance to sort of bring in a bit of confidence, bring in a bit of belief. They beat Brighton in the FA Cup in the last round. That was a big achievement. Man City, it feels like a game they shouldn't be able to win, but they are there.
Yeah.
And City are in a bit of turmoil right now.
And if you think back to that 4-2 loss that Villa suffered against Man City, I mean, I know Sean Goater was in charge for that one, but if it wasn't for Villa mistakes at the back and some absolute belters from Miedemar and Fowler, Aston Villa would have won that football game. So if City fail to find 20-yarders and Lucy Parker doesn't just play Miedemar through on goal again, then there's a very, very good opportunity. There's a good opportunity that Villa could get something from this match. And as I said, that was with it when Sean Goater was interim. Arroyo's now in as permanent manager, and no offence to Sean Goater, but she's a much better coach because she is an actual coach.
Yeah.
So I think there's a good chance that if Villa set up well, we know Villa like to have the ball, and we know that City also like to have the ball. But what we know with City is if Villa have the ball, City don't really know what they're doing. And I think it could. I mean, to be fair, City's biggest downfall is actually when they do have the ball this season. They just keep giving it away.
Been a bit messy, yeah.
Villa, they'll expect to get the ball. They'll expect to get themselves on the ball, and they'll expect to win it high, and that could really cost Man City.
Yeah. And these two sides did meet at the same stage of this competition 2 years ago in March 2023, and Aston Villa won that day 2-1 after extra time. So, could we see history repeat itself? Harry, in terms of predictions, would you believe in the Aston Villa upset, or do you think City will have enough?
I think out of the 4 games, I've got to back an upset in one, and as we've said, I think this is the most realistic. I think Villa will win this game. I don't think they'll do it in normal time though. I think we'll go all the way to penalties at 1-1.
Wow.
And Villa will win it on pens.
I like it a lot. Fair enough. I will say Man City, I think, will just edge it for me. I think that again, similar to United, there will be that focus on the FA Cup now. And obviously the League Cup final next weekend. But I think there will be a focus now on trying to win those domestic trophies. So I think City will win here. That said, I could definitely see the Aston Villa upset if there was to be. I think if City do rotate quite heavily, which they very much could do, with Chelsea coming up next Saturday, I think then it could become a bit messy and definitely an opportunity for Villa to take advantage of. But I think City will go fairly strong here, and I think they rested up against West Ham.
Exactly.
Clearly, the focus now is on winning the domestic cups.
Yeah, the key. I think that West Ham game is absolutely key. Shaw only came on for half an hour. They rested well, which obviously, they didn't rest well because they ended up getting a point. They drew the game, so it didn't actually work. But it should mean that they can play a stronger 11 in this game.
But it shows they're sacrificing now the WSL in favour of trying to win these cups. And I get it, because that's got to be where their focus is.
It has, but silverware's all good, but if they're not in the Champions League next season, things can get dicey. Will players want us, it's going to be one of those.
I think the City should be all right. I mean, they've already. I mean, Caroline's not going anywhere. I know she's signed because she wants to play Champions League football, but she's not going to leave immediately. Alexandri's gone, whether they win the Champions League or not. So I think they should be all right, and no one can afford Khadija Shaw. So in that regard, maybe, they should be okay. But I think it will be it'll be interesting. I think though, for Taylor and for the fans, a trophy is really important. I think if Taylor doesn't win a trophy this year, there will be huge question marks around his job and whether they need to be looking at alternatives. So I understand, therefore, why that is their focus. Obviously, the Women's League Cup's the easier one to win because they're already in the final. Yeah. But the Women's FA Cup, you'd argue, is more prestigious. And if they took both, that's even bigger positive.
And that's the thing. If they lose this game, then it suddenly feels like Man City get into a situation where it is paramount they win the League Cup. If not, Taylor could be in very, very big trouble. So that's the kind of pressure that this game has. If they get knocked out, not only do they get knocked out of the quarter-final stage of the FA Cup, but they get knocked out to a lower side like Aston Villa, and suddenly they have the Conti Cup, the Subway Cup becomes an absolute must.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's move on then to the next game, the 2:30 kickoff, Arsenal versus Liverpool. This, again, it feels like a game that should be closer than it probably will play out to be. Liverpool haven't been on the boil this season. Arsenal are a side who are very strong, have looked very good under Rene Slagers. I think this is probably the most routine this will feel. Obviously, Liverpool now without Matt Beard, and I think that will be to their detriment in a game like this, where they would need a more scrappy defensive performance. I think that will be detrimental not having Beard on the sidelines. But we've seen Amber Whiteley coach a very good performance against Man City earlier in the season. We saw her win her first game in charge against Crystal Palace, admittedly very different level of opponent. But it'll be very interesting to see what Liverpool do this weekend. The favour's definitely carried by Arsenal, though.
Yeah, if this tie had happened last season, there'd be a very, very good chance that I would say that Liverpool could get something out of this. But this season, so much has happened. Arsenal look at a completely different side, and Liverpool have really had quite a drop-off. But as you say, they take the positives from last weekend. Liverpool, it was a good win against Palace. They couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo for the majority of the match, and the goal they did score was really scrappy. But they know they'll have to raise the performance. But if they do that, potentially they could get something out of it. Arsenal, it was a weird one against West Ham. I think that that was probably one of their worst games of the season. Defensively, they just got carved apart by this. By that West Ham side. They could have easily lost that game. It was a good turnaround in the end, and I think that shows where the difference is with Arsenal, is that the fact they did win that game. Yes, West Ham capitulated, Kirsty Smith was playing volleyball in her own penalty area, but Arsenal did very well to turn it around, and
And
that
also put the pressure on that
yeah.
leads to those mistakes coming
exactly.
in.
And I think that Liverpool they do pack a punch on the attack, but if Arsenal get the ball down and play their football, then they could easily put a few goals past this Liverpool side. That's the thing. The big thing for me, West Ham, is that pivot of Little and was it Valty just did not work at all, and the ball just no one just moved the ball. There's no Cooney Cross will be back ready for this one after coming back from the Chivas Cup. They should be okay to bring her back in and have someone who can actually move the ball from back to front. So for Arsenal, I think they'll forget about the West Ham result. They did well to get through after beating the London City Lionesses in round 5. They will expect to have a routine victory here against a Liverpool side that I don't think are going to offer much.
Yeah, Liverpool side are out of shape. I think Liverpool are always the side who can offer a fight. It very much depends on what team shows up on the day, but they have got players like Roman Haug, like Olivia Smith, who can just cause trouble even if Liverpool aren't playing particularly well. I think there will be some concerns based on that West Ham result because a better side would have, at 3-1 up against Arsenal, would have seen that game out. So there will be some concerns that I think, again, though, you can mediate those by saying, well, look at all of the top sides. They all had struggles because of probably of the international break. They'd had all of them had a lot of players that weren't back yet from the She Blues Cup, or had only a day back in the squad. I think a lot of them had players who played between 90 and 180 minutes over the international break. So it makes sense that there was a bit of sluggishness, a bit of sloppiness in those sides. But I think for this weekend, Arsenal will be sharp. They will be on it, and again they'll be really keen to win this competition because they're not going to win the WSL now. I don't think they'll see themselves as realistic candidates for the UWCL. So I think again, like Manchester City, like Manchester United, the focus for Arsenal now has to be on the cups, and it's going to put real impetus on them to go and win this FA Cup because they're out now of the Subway League Cup. It's really important they win this game.
Yeah, it's as you say, from Arsenal point of view, they will want silverware, and this is their best shot at getting it. It's one their only really. If we're being realistic, it's their only shot for me.
I think it's more realistic they win the UWSL than City do right now, which may be a controversial take, but I think Arsenal are probably looking a bit more put together.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing because with the FA Cup, at the end of the day, obviously Chelsea want to win every trophy, but their focus is now on the league and the UWCL. So there's a good opportunity for that next side to go and win this trophy, and I do think it'll be a really, really interesting contest. But Arsenal will fancy themselves, and I think even if they don't go on and win it, if in Slagers' first 3 quarters of the season they finish in the top 3 and they get to the domestic cup final and they get to the UWCL quarterfinals at the very least, that's not a bad showing at all. So for Arsenal, they want to go and win it, but even for me, getting to the last 4, getting into the final would be a really, really good result. And the way the draw's fallen, I think they'll fancy themselves to get into the last 4 here.
Yeah, fair enough. Predictions then, I think we are fairly unanimous. Again, Arsenal will probably win this game.
Yeah.
I think it could be a 3-4-0 game. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Arsenal are looking really sharp at the moment. Liverpool don't look like the side. Don't look like a side who can compete at that sort of level right now. But it'll be interesting to see. I think Amber Whiteley again will be keen to get our players up for this game because for Liverpool this is a good opportunity to pull off an upset. So I think it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, Liverpool's focus now really is to get into the top half of the league. But as you say, if they could add the semi-finals, the FA Cup to that, I think that would also add to what has been could be a really good recovery.
But again, this competition does then another reason you question why sack Matt Beard, because I think again they would have had a better chance of winning this game if Beard was still in charge. I'd look at this game and say, well, Liverpool probably going to set up really defensively and then look to spring on the counter attack. We know that's how Matt Beard wants to play, and that could work against Arsenal because Arsenal have in the past struggled to break down low blocks. This season they've been a bit better at it with Slagers in charge, but there's no reason why if Liverpool executed it well, it couldn't be really difficult.
Yeah.
So I think, again, opens up a really weird question. Let's move on then to our final game of the FA Cup quarterfinals, Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. Chelsea, a really important week for the Blues. 2 competitions that they missed out on last year. They lost the League Cup final to Arsenal. Obviously, they got City in the final this or next Saturday. And then, obviously, this competition, they were knocked out in the semi-final stage last season to Manchester United in what was a very frustrating watch, I think, for Chelsea fans. So an important week that they, Bombastos made it her mission, made it her goal very publicly from the start of the season that they want to win all 4 trophies this season. And so There will be importance placed on this game, but do you think we'll see a rotated side for Chelsea?
I'm very interested because it was a slightly rotated side for Chelsea on Wednesday against Leicester, and they did well to get the job done. But as you say, I'd expect with the quality of this Chelsea side, with the options that Bonpastor has got, I'd expect to see Chelsea at home against Crystal Palace. They'll expect it to be comfortable, and I think they will rotate quite a bit. And as you say, Chelsea, games like these are absolutely massive. They fell last season in all three cup competitions, the Champions League and the two domestic ones. They fell almost at the final hurdle. They were semi-finalists in the FA Cup, finalists in the League Cup, and semi-finalists in the UCL. So I think there's an expectation now to go on to win, to get one step further and go and win all those competitions. That's what Bonpastor wants to do. And as we've kind of seen with Sonia and Chelsea this season, if they want something, they get it. And I think looking towards this quarter-final, Leif Smerod's only been in charge by the time they get to Sunday, Leif Smerod had only been Crystal Palace manager for 8 days. So unless he's come up with a masterstroke and something incredible, I'd expect Chelsea to be onto a routine victory here, similar to the other top sides left in the quarter-final stage. Palace, they're going to give it everything they've got if they're going to go out. But again,
I don't know if they will. I think they may just play a rotated side here and deal with whatever the result is. Because, yes, somehow pulling off a win against Chelsea would be lovely. But I think it's much more important for Palace that they are able to rest their players and then focus on the end of this season because they are bottom of the league. They have got 6 points to their name. It depends on how you view it. If Leif Smerod's coming in and going, well, we're probably down at this point.
Yeah.
Let's just throw all our eggs into the FA Cup basket and see if we can pull off an upset, then maybe he'll do that. I wouldn't be surprised if he used this game to try out some different players, to give some opportunities to some players who are either younger players, haven't given an opportunity yet, or haven't really got a run in the side yet. So I think that may be what this game is used for. That is likely, though, to be at the detriment of the result, in which case I think Chelsea will have this fairly comfortably.
Yeah, as you say, this is what I think would be termed as a free hit for Smerod and Palace. Try out different things, get the side with another 90 minutes playing the way he wants to play, ready to go and hit Aston Villa at home next weekend is a pivotal game. If they lose that, I think they're probably down. So this game for Palace is probably just about another 90 minutes. Smerod can get his side familiar with what he wants to do, how he wants to play, who he wants to play in certain areas, and as you say, that will probably cost him at the end of the day. He'll understand this is a game that they're never expected to win. I think they'll hope to keep it more fashionable than the 7-0 at the start of the season. And I don't think it will be that bad because, as you say, I think Chelsea will rotate, and unlike in the league, there's not as much kind of ambition to go and score loads of goals in a knockout game.
For Chelsea, it's get a few goals in, then rest.
Just bring everyone off, throw on Lola Brown and all the youngsters and give them a go.
Give her a debut, that would be good.
That is the aim for Chelsea. Have the game done by 60 minutes and then just rotate in that final 30. But
possibly get Feshell involved for a
potentially
first appearance.
And that's the thing, this is for Chelsea. Obviously, you don't want to ever say that for a side this is going to be a bit of a. It's going to be one of those games basically where Chelsea use it to get players back to full fitness, just to share out a few minutes.
We hope. There's always the chance to upset the magic of the FA Cup, but as you say, it should be a routine victory for Chelsea. I think we'd both predict. It's a win for Chelsea. For Palace, the next two fixtures in the season are the most important. If they beat Aston Villa and Everton, suddenly the relegation battle's alive.
Yeah.
If they don't, they're probably gone. So the focus for Crystal Palace is not on Chelsea this weekend.
No.
It's looking ahead at them 2 weekends afterwards. But yeah, so Women's FA Cup quarter-finals. I'm predicting all the big teams to go through because I'm boring. You think there'll be an upset in the City Villa game?
Yeah, I really hope so. Obviously, as exciting as it would be to see the top 4 teams in the WSL into the semi-finals, and whoever draws whoever is going to be a brilliant, brilliant game of football. It's the FA Cup. You want to see an upset. You want to see an underdog into that last 4. And I'd love to see the likes of Aston, because if it's someone like, no offence to Sunderland or Palace, but I think if they got through to the last 4, they'd end up losing anyway. But I think if it's someone like a Villa or a Liverpool, there's a good chance they take momentum and they go, like for Liverpool, if they somehow beat Arsenal and they go and draw Man City, maybe they could get to the final. Who knows? Let's see what. It's not quite what we saw last year.
I am glad though that we've got the quarter-final stage where there are the 4 big teams should all win in theory.
Yeah,
setting up some really exciting semi-finals, because last year the United Chelsea game, big game, exciting. The other game though between Leicester and Tottenham,
that was good.
It was a good game of football. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it meant that we would see one of those two sides in the final, and that wasn't quite
Yeah,
as
it was a good,
exciting.
it was a lovely day and a big moment for Tottenham and their history. But at the end of the day, as you say, 4-0 in the domestic cup final is not what you want to see. So yeah, it's good to see the four biggest teams in the country all realistically should be going through to the semi-finals. But who knows? We're here for an upset. I love a cup upset. That's the whole point of the cup.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens this Sunday and Saturday this weekend. Do join us on Sunday. We'll be live from Manchester City, Aston Villa on this YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified for that. If you want to watch another video, there'll be another one on screen now. So go and check out more of our content and make sure to join our Discord. That'll be linked in the description of this video. We are going to be, it's a place that our community can talk. When we're not live, when we're not posting, that's a place where we can talk about the games. It's also a place where you can give video ideas. So if you've got something you want us to talk about in a video, go and put it in there. And also means you can interact with the content because we're going to be doing a video looking at your hot takes next week. So if you go and put it in the Discord, then we could we'll be here to debate it. So go and get involved in that. The link is in the description below. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.